Good morning. Good morning. Could I have you all sit down, take your places? Good morning. My name's Robin West. I'm the chairman of the German Marshall Fund. And Secretary Pritzker, Deputy Secretary Liu, State Secretary Rachel, Ambassador Wittig, distinguished guests, on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the German Marshall Fund, I welcome you all to this important signing ceremony that has brought us together at GMF. The document about to be signed is a joint declaration of intent on the shared belief in the importance of promoting education and training as a factor in individual development and achievement, economic development, and social growth, as well as a means for strengthening the ties between the United States and Germany. Beyond the significance of the signing of this document, today is GMF's birthday. June 5th is an important day in the history of the German Marshall Fund. On that day in 1947, George Marshall announced at Harvard what would become known as the Marshall Plan. 25 years later, on a June 5th, 1972 speech, again at Harvard University, German Chancellor Brandt delivered what would be known as response and the thank you in a speech calling for the establishment of GMF as an expression of special gratitude for the German decision, for the American decision in 1947. Since that time, GMF has been strengthening transatlantic cooperation on local, national, regional, and global challenges and opportunities in the spirit of the Marshall Plan. And so today, we couldn't be more excited to mark GMF's 43rd anniversary with an event that reinforces the strength and durability of the German-American partnership and the friendship between our countries. Through its work, GMF has demonstrated the unique ability to explore issues critical to the transatlantic agenda in ways that bridge local and global significance, strengthening the competitiveness of the U.S. and German economies, developing a skilled workforce, and enhancing innovation are examples of issues that impact local, national, and transatlantic relations. GMF just released the findings of its task force on the future of the German-American relations. The report highlighted the role that workforce development can play as an area in which Germany and the United States can learn from each other. This should not be surprising. Germany is the U.S. largest trading partner within Europe, and the United States receives the largest amount of German exports outside of Europe. GMF has long advocated cooperation on these issues through the flagship Marshall Memorial Fellowship Program and the urban and regional policy programs. These programs help to build bridges between transatlantic leaders in order to enhance their knowledge, grow their leadership skills, and advance new ideas and solutions in their home communities. For example, Germany's education and vocational training system has been a source of inspiration for local leaders engaged in our work. Through study tours and workshops, leaders from Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Ohio have found ways to translate elements of the German system to improving opportunities for training and education in high-growth industries. As for our Marshall Memorial Fellow alumni network of over 3,000, hundreds have worked directly in business and workforce development, education, science and technology, and innovation. These leaders are clustered throughout cities and regions in the U.S. and Germany, and they're ready to engage in this partnership and make it a powerful testament to transatlantic cooperation. This memorandum of understanding is about competitiveness, job creation, and workforce development. It's a reaffirmation of what we do together and what we must continue to do in supporting and solidifying bilateral ties between Germany and the United States. That's why GMF supports this initiative. Some of our best work is done when we learn from each other. I applaud the officials here today for their diligent work to promote this understanding. Our support of this MOU does not end with this signing ceremony. Rather, we plan to use our network of stakeholders and our U.S.-German task force to help reinforce the value of this shared learning and to help promote this agreement. We'll continue to host roundtable discussions on this theme and encourage our audience to join us in support of transatlantic cooperation across the U.S. and Germany. In fact, June 9th to 12th across cities in North Carolina, GMF is supporting roundtable discussions on dual education and apprenticeship. It's now my honor to serve as Master Ceremony today, and I am proud to turn the microphone over to the Honorable Thomas Rachel, the German Parliamentary State Secretary of Education and Research.
Secretary of Commerce Pritzker, Deputy Secretary Liu, Assistant Secretary Wu, Assistant Secretary Williams, Acting Assistant Secretary Irwin, Mr. West, Ambassador Wittig, we are very happy to have you here today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to speak to you today on the occasion on signing of a joint declaration of intent on cooperation in the field of vocational education and training between the United States of America and Germany. I'm so pleased that we are signing this bilateral declaration of intent. It is the first time that the United States of America and Germany signed such a cooperation agreement at ministerial level. And it's also the first time that as many as 3 departments have been involved on each side, namely the American and German departments for education, for economic affairs, and labor. I think this clearly speaks for the good and friendly relations between our 2 countries. Ladies and gentlemen, youth unemployment is one of the greatest global challenges we have in our times. It has a direct impact on our country's economic development as well on the social peace. No nation can afford to give up an entire generation. In March 2015, youth unemployment in Greece, for example, stood over 50%, while the average in Europe was about 20%, and the figure for the United States was about 12%. In many countries, we can currently observe a big gap between the need for skilled workers on the one hand and sustained youth unemployment on the other hand. We need good basic qualifications for the young people in order to solve this discrepancy. In his State of Union address 2013, President Obama emphasized the importance of the vocational training system in Germany. This is where the dual system of vocational education and training shows its worth. It's one of the decisive reasons why Germany's rate of youth unemployment stood at the comparatively low but still not acceptable level of 7.2% in March this year. In company training, in particular, ensures the practical relevance which industry so urgently needs. At the same time, the early involvement of trainees in the business everyday work facilitates their transition into the labor market. It is these features that are of particular interest to our partner countries. Then there are the questions of how to make vocational education and training a more attractive and recognized career path, and why German companies are so strongly committed into vocational training. Ladies and gentlemen, we in the German Ministry for Research, Education and Science, in the BMBF, are facing a huge demand from abroad. At the moment, we have 17 ongoing bilateral partnerships in the field of vocational training, most of which are based on a cooperation agreement. The number of cooperation agreements and partnerships is growing steadily, with the most recent addition being the United States of America here today. The countries that request cooperation with the BMBF plan to reform their education systems and shape them along dual lines. That is where we want to support our partner countries and work with them to develop strategies to achieve their individual goals for reform. This support is never about transferring the German dual system to another country. That would not make sense and would therefore be doomed to failure. Instead, it is about taking the specific conditions and situation of the individual partner countries into account and understanding the objectives of the proposed reforms. At the end of the day, our cooperation is always about transformation in the partner country. This means that the partner country must enforce these changes itself. We support our partners on this path with our know-how and experience with the dual training system, and we also assist in designing pilot projects. Our aim is to provide good practice examples of how elements of dual training can be introduced in the partner countries. Our dual system in Germany is somehow unique insofar as it strikes the right balance between the different interests of the various stakeholders in a social dialogue. The German system, the German dual system, could not work without this consensus on the part of all the actors involved: the business, the social partners, the chambers, and the ministries alike. This so-called social dialogue also guarantees the flexible development of the system. The German VET system is basically in a permanent process of dialogue. There will always be stakeholders who see a need to improve the system. This is a positive factor because it helps us to develop the system further. We are often asked about the attractiveness of vocational education and training. On the one hand, there's a question of how businesses, as the initial training venue, can be motivated to invest in vocational training, especially as investments in the initial phase of training are particularly high. It is not enough to simply invite trainees to work in a company. Companies have to create necessary conditions to integrate trainees in a structured process of learning. In Germany, companies pay their trainees. If we want to convince employers to make such investments, they need to regard training their future employees as their own responsibility. It is important for trainees that their qualifications are recognized throughout the country and enable them to perform a range of activities. We will also follow an individual approach in our cooperation with the United States of America. I believe that first of all, it is important to gain a full understanding of the system. We must therefore portray and describe the realities of the systems as it exists in Germany. As a matter of fact, we in Germany also learn from the corporations through exchange of experience and mutual learning, both of which teach us other ways of integrating dual components in a vocational training systems. This helps us to develop our own system further. There can be no doubt that this is a clear win-win situation for both sides. We will definitely learn from each other. And this is true for all stakeholders, government departments, social partners, and business alike. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, German companies can play a substantial role in introducing the dual system through their subsidiaries in the partner countries. These are familiar with the dual system and can often provide good practice examples for similar training programs in other partner countries. I have learned that many of the more than 3,400 German companies in the United States are already taking this path. Among them, we find well-known businesses such as VW, BMW, Bosch or Stihl. So we see that there are already some first examples and attempts to set up a dual training. Let me mention finally the German Embassy's successful skills initiative, Mr. Ambassador, in this regard. This theme supports the company's efforts and promotes regional cooperation with vocational institutions, for instance, local colleges. All this provides an excellent starting position. I'm therefore very pleased that we also laid the political foundations for cooperation in vocational education and training between our two countries by signing the Declaration of Intent in some minutes. I'm convinced that our dialogue and exchange will be fruitful for both sides and especially for the young generation in our two countries. Thank you very much.
Now it's my privilege to introduce the Deputy Secretary of Labor, Mr. Liu. It's yours.
Good morning. It is a pleasure to be here with our colleagues from Germany, and I want to thank the German Marshall Fund for hosting this important event. I want to thank Secretary Pritzker and the wonderful teams at Commerce, Education, and Labor who have worked hard to get us to this day. The U.S. Department of Labor has employed a close working relationship with our German colleagues on labor and employment issues. We appreciate the leadership that Germany has taken during its G7 presidency to promote greater respect for worker rights and improve occupational and safety and health in the supply chain. We also admire the leadership that the German government has shown in promoting family-friendly workplace practices, and I was honored in March to host Minister Schwesig for a meeting to discuss these policies. We are here today to continue to learn from Germany about your approaches to promoting a skilled workforce. Last October, Secretary Perez visited Germany to learn about the dual system that integrates technical vocational education and work-based training, and he had a wonderful week of meetings with businesses, training institutions, government officials, and trade unions. And he was struck by the effectiveness of this dual training process. We just heard now about the youth unemployment rate in Germany. And I would note that that's 60%, that 7.2 is about 60% of what it is here in the United States. So we have a great deal still to learn from our German friends. The President and Secretary Perez have made advancing apprenticeships a centerpiece of our strategy to meet the demand for skills in American industry. The breadth of occupational training in Germany's dual system can help inform our program development as we move apprenticeships into new industries such as advanced manufacturing, information technology, energy, and healthcare. We also recognize that skills and training are essential to the growth of our economy and the strength of our middle class. And that's one of the reasons why we have set a goal to double the number of apprenticeships in our country over a 5-year period. So in order to accomplish this, we know that we need to modernize our system, and to do that we are going to borrow and blend the best ideas from abroad, and some of those best ideas come from Germany. And we're going to create a uniquely American system that we call Apprenticeship USA. And we've had some wonderful collaborations recently with German firms on this area of apprenticeship training. Siemens, MTU, America, Volkswagen, and others are leading the way in apprenticeships for high-demand jobs. And we are especially pleased that many German headquartered companies have also become Apprenticeship USA leaders. Business leaders who have used apprenticeships, both here and abroad, are often the best ambassadors for why this method of training works. And this Leaders campaign is our new effort to raise the profile of registered apprenticeships in order to expand this goal, to meet this goal, that ultimately leads to greater opportunity. And we are pleased that we already have 75 leader companies and organizations that are working with us with a goal to have 100 by this summer. So we are pleased by the collaboration that we are signing today. We continue to look for greater ways to expand partnerships with our friends in Germany, and we thank everyone for being part of this historic effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Secretary. It is now my distinct honor to introduce the key champion of this project and our keynote speaker, the Honorable Penny Pritzker, Secretary of Commerce. Secretary Pritzker joined the administration after a distinguished career in the private sector. Since taking the helm at Commerce, Secretary Pritzker has broadened the department's priorities to include skills and workforce development. Today's declaration is a testament to that effort. Welcome, Secretary Pritzker.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you to the German Marshall Fund, and in fact, happy birthday to the German Marshall Fund. We're really grateful to you for hosting this event and for carrying forward the spirit of transatlantic cooperation that was envisioned and advanced by the Marshall Plan. I also want to recognize Senator Richard Lugar, who has spent so many years in the Senate as a leading authoritative voice on the relationship between the United States and our key allies in Europe and around the world. I know he continues that work through the Richard Lugar Institute for Diplomacy and as a fellow here at the German Marshall Fund. I also want to thank Ambassador Vidic for your work to deepen the bonds of friendship between our two countries. About a year ago, the ambassador and I were together at the Aspen Institute when it was a very difficult time, actually, and a tense period for our two countries. The United States and Germany were about to play a much anticipated World Cup match. Luckily, despite the results of the contest for the American fans, the ambassador and I have managed to keep our bilateral relationship intact. Soccer matches aside, our Aspen event focused on the same area of our economic alliance that brings us here today together, job-driven training and workforce development. I've met with over 1,800 CEOs since becoming Commerce Secretary, and almost every one of them has said that their need for a steady supply of skilled, qualified workers to fill jobs throughout our economy is a key challenge for their companies. In fact, between now and 2022, our dynamic private sector will need to fill 2.2 million openings for production workers, 500,000 openings for engineers, and an untold number of openings in new emerging occupations. To address this challenge and the greater challenges, we must come together, business leaders, academics, labor unions, government, and outside partners like the German embassy to develop talent pipelines to fill these jobs. We cannot allow a skills disparity to slow the growth of our businesses or limit the prosperity of our workers, our families, and our communities. To address this challenge, for the first time, the Department of Commerce has made skills and workforce development a priority. Through our Skills for Business initiative, we are partnering across the federal government with agencies like the Department of Labor and the Department of Education, who join us here today to assure that our training programs meet the needs of industry as well as prepare our workers for the jobs of the 21st century. But federal policy efforts alone cannot address the skills mismatch. Our $17 billion in federal training investments amount to a tiny fraction of the $450 billion American employers invest in training their workforce. This is one reason why educational institutions, businesses, economic development organizations, and local governments must come together to identify specific solutions to their local workforce challenges. To encourage collaboration and break down silos, the Commerce Department recently launched the Communities That Work partnership with the Aspen Institute, which will select 6 communities in the United States where cross-sector collaboration is already happening. In addition to providing those communities with technical assistance, this initiative will convene the selected communities not only to learn from one another, but to develop common practices from their individualized solutions. Practices that can be applied and shared across our country. Aspen will then use the lessons learned from these initial efforts to inform and improve workforce efforts nationally and support the creation of new partnerships around our country. The Obama administration is laser-focused on building a well-prepared workforce to drive our economy forward. We have much to learn from many sources, such as the communities that will gather at Aspen, or the Pathways to Prosperity Network, which I learned about recently on a visit to Harvard, which they are helping 11 states develop pathways for young people to jobs in IT, healthcare, and advanced manufacturing. And we have much to learn from our close allies like Germany. We recognize that Germany's centuries of excellence in this field should inform and improve our own efforts in job-driven training. So I want to repeat what I said last year at the event with Ambassador Vidic. The effort to bring your dual system of training to America may be one of the most valuable German imports to our country over the long term. The impact is already visible through the work of the German Embassy Skills Initiative, which has introduced dual training models to companies, manufacturers, community colleges, and state governments across the United States. More recently, this initiative was introduced to Charlotte, North Carolina, where a German company, Festo AG, formed a partnership with Central Piedmont Community College to open a state-of-the-art training facility on their campus. This new center will go beyond classical basic education, and it'll offer customized training for a number of specific companies in the region and connect students with local manufacturers where their skills will be most applicable. Festo AG's program is just one example of our bilateral effort to close the skills gap in the United States. Bringing more of Germany's experience to the United States and exchanging best practices in workforce development are the central goals of our joint declaration. This agreement will formalize our cooperation in technical and career training. This agreement will include exchanges of information, fact-finding visits, and meetings among experts from businesses and government from both of our countries. This agreement has the potential to expand on-the-job training, internships, and apprenticeships as well. These commitments are critical, but it's up to all of us in this room, our Department of Commerce, our Department of Labor, our Department of Education, the 3 German Ministries of Education and Research, Economic Affairs and Energy, and Labor and Social Affairs, along with all of you in this room, to translate our Declaration of Intent to action and outcomes. We're calling upon our German partners to expand the Skills Initiative and bring this effort to the supply chains of larger German companies operating here in the United States. And if we work together, the Embassy Skills Initiative can have an even greater impact. The Department of Commerce has manufacturing extension partner centers, We have manufacturing extension partnership centers in each one of our states, which they can connect the skills initiative to small and medium-sized manufacturers. So by partnering, we can ensure that U.S. suppliers develop training programs as rigorous as those that are enjoyed by larger German and American firms that these small companies support. For example, in partnership with the Skills Initiative, Central Ohio Technical College trains workers for jobs in nearby businesses, including Owens Corning, the biggest fiberglass manufacturer in the world. But they also train workers for German firms like Bayer Material and Experian. We all win if we bring this training effort to smaller enterprises that support our large companies. I have another request. We would like to include all the US-based German manufacturers in our Manufacturing Day on October 2nd. This day offers students, their parents and teachers, and their guidance counselors nationwide opportunity to see up close and personal, firsthand, the innovative face of their community's 21st century manufacturing base. Last year, a number of leading German firms participated, including BASF Corporation's facility in Tennessee, the second largest producer and marketer of chemical products in North America. And Rosenberger Group's site in New Jersey also participated. They're a worldwide leader in the high-frequency and fiber optic technology fields. U.S. subsidiaries of German manufacturers employ nearly 250,000 Americans. And this year, we want our young people to learn directly from all of those workers the possibilities in a manufacturing career. Today's joint declaration is not our first agreement with the German embassy. In March, on behalf of the administration, our department accepted Germany's invitation to be the official partner country for next year's Hanover Fair, the largest industrial trade fair in the world. The Hanover Messe will showcase U.S. companies' innovative and high-quality products in various sectors, including energy and advanced manufacturing, to hundreds of thousands of attendees at this fair from around the world. The Commerce Department's Select USA team will co-host the USA Investment Center at the fair. We will showcase the advantages of investing in the United States to the more than 6,500 industry exhibitors and the 210,000 visitors to the fair. We enjoy a robust, active economic relationship with Germany, and our cooperation on developing a skilled workforce in the United States and our cooperation on the Hanover Messe are just two examples of our strong partnership. Germany is our country's largest trading partner in Europe and the sixth largest destination for our exports worldwide. To further deepen these ties, we are engaged in negotiations on the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership to remove regulatory hurdles and other trade barriers between our countries. We also have significant investment in the United States from German companies, which employ over 620,000 American workers. And we appreciate very much the fact that Germany brought a delegation of 55 investors to this year's Select USA Summit, which is the main event to support our whole-of-government effort to attract foreign direct investment to the United States markets and communities. So simply put, the U.S.-German relationship is thriving. While much has changed since the days of the Marshall Plan, it is critical that our alliance remains strong and that we continue to collaborate as friends and partners. This joint declaration of intent is simply another sign of how our countries are working together to deepen our dynamic economic ties and to ensure that our nations remain open for business. Thank you. Amy Slater.
The Secretary has agreed to take a few questions, so.
Madam Secretary, Excellency, thank you very much for your leadership. Natalie Hartman, representing the Lufthansa Group here. We know firsthand the important process and due diligence and fitness test when thinking about investments and the proximity to a skilled workforce and to the training academies that we need in order to have that tailored approach that you discussed. Through your leadership in the Select USA program, as well as the Ambassador and the Skills Initiative, we were able to really put together and through a tough fitness test, a very competitive process, very proudly able to invest last year in Puerto Rico, where we have 400 skilled workers, and happy to say that most of those are in the pipeline right now, and we're training and they're on the job, and we're on time and on budget for a great opening this year.
Terrific.
So thank you for your efforts and great leadership and partnership in that. How can we also harness this new initiative for our current investments and enhancing them, and then also from an international business perspective, how we can also really capture this as we think about new investments in the U.S. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for Lufthansa's investment in Puerto Rico. We all worked very hard on that. It was extremely competitive, and we're very grateful that you chose to put your facility in Puerto Rico. And I think, if I recall the process correctly, a significant portion of your decision to invest in Puerto Rico had to do with the workforce and the commitment that was made to make sure that you would have a robust pipeline of technical workers to make sure that your facility, which is designed to repair airplanes, is never down but always functional. And I also want to congratulate our Select USA team. Frankly, they worked very hard to make sure that all the partners came together for that to happen. You know, I think there are a couple of ways that we can continue to work together. First of all, the Skills Initiative is one that we can continue to build on in new areas. And for example, as I mentioned in my speech, really making sure that the supply chain that supports your efforts in Puerto Rico, but others' efforts are, we engage those companies, which tend to be smaller and can't really do their own workforce training, in the initiatives that we have put together. The second place I think we can work together is through our manufacturing extension partnerships. In every state we have manufacturing extension partnerships. For those of you who don't know, this is an effort where the Commerce Department works with a local partner to work with manufacturers within that community to help them have global standard first-class manufacturing processes. It also helps them to evolve if they're, let's say, changing a line or they're having a major change in their customer base, so that they can remain viable and competitive. And if you told me, when I've spent 27 years in the private sector, if you told me that the federal government was helping manufacturers stay globally competitive, I was highly skeptical until I came in and actually saw this in action. It's an amazing service, and this is another place where we can work together. I think the other thing that we hope to do through the Skills Initiative and our joint declaration is to make sure that the alumni of our programs are connected by a network, so that we can not only companies know of what each other are doing, but also the workforce. So I think those are a few ways that we could work together.
Thank you. Another question?
Thank you, Madam Secretary. My name is Andrew Rogers. I'm with the District of Columbia Workforce Investment Council. I want to commend you all on this great initiative, as well as the administration's continued support with job-driven training, apprenticeship models, and especially in non-traditional apprenticeships, as well as support for post-secondary education. How do you see, or has there been any preliminary thoughts on how this initiative and the partnership that's being developed will, in the local or the labor exchange outcomes, how those will actually kind of feed down to local governments, local communities, both rural and urban, as well as to the businesses, especially small businesses?
Well, as I said, I think there's a couple ways that we can, that we've thought about moving forward, but we're always open to more suggestions. So we're all ears. But I think through the existing manufacturing extension partnerships, we can use them. They are, tend to have dozens and dozens of people in state. So they are connected with small and medium-sized businesses. So that's a great place for us to take our skills initiative and really use those connections to work with smaller and medium-sized businesses. And the second is Manufacturing Day. Not to underestimate, this is an opportunity for large and small and medium-sized manufacturers to really showcase themselves in their communities. What we're trying to do is not only elevate manufacturing, but frankly address the fact that I think manufacturing has an image problem in general. I think there's a lack of understanding among particularly guidance counselors and in some respect parents, which obviously influence children, as to what are the career opportunities available in manufacturing, and as well as how do we, and what that career is. It doesn't look like the career of my father or my grandfather or my grandmother's manufacturing day. It's very different, it's very dynamic, it's very technical. And so the other thing is that the German Marshall Fund is also sponsoring next week in North Carolina something that I think can be replicated, which is a set of roundtables talking about apprenticeships and the apprenticeship programs in Germany and how they could be evolved to be applicable here, and working with our Department of Labor. And one of the other issues that they'll talk about is return on investment, and what are the costs of running these types of programs. Let me just reemphasize something important that Chris said. The President has tasked us with doubling the number of registered apprenticeships in the United States. And that is an ambitious goal. Today, I think we have about 415,000 apprenticeships, registered apprenticeships. We know if someone gets a job in an apprenticeship program, registered apprenticeship program, 87% of those folks will end up with a job. So it's a very successful way to train someone. So doubling makes sense. But we also know if you took the population of Germany and the number of folks in Germany who are in apprenticeship programs and applied that percentage to the United States, we should have 7 million apprenticeships. So we got a lot of work to do. I applaud, all of us are working hard to reach the President's ambitious goal to double by 2020 the number of registered apprenticeships. That requires partnering with our businesses. So lots that we can do together, and obviously you as an economic development officer and in your DC Workforce Investment Council role, can really help us to partner, because at the end of the day, this is all about partnership.
I have one more question.
Madam Secretary, I appreciate your mentioning this Manufacturing Day on May the 2nd, likewise the President's Apprenticeship Challenge. I think both of us are aware that a good part of the dilemma for the unemployment of young people in our country comes from the fact that they have dropped out of school at various stages, or they have gone to schools that were not very satisfactory in terms of gaining basic literacy and the ability to carry on. I don't want to get into a sort of a class warfare discussion, but sort of the bottom third of income people in our country have a very, very high percentage of young people who are failing at this particular point. Now, the Manufacturers' Day sounds much like job fairs we used to have in Indianapolis, for example, in which we tried very hard to bring together people who might offer jobs or some incentive for people to take this on. But I'm wondering, and this really stretches what is already an ambitious program discussed today, how are we going to meet the needs of the American educational system simultaneously with getting apprenticeships or people prepared for the apprenticeship level, which probably would lead to jobs? I'm just deeply concerned about the strategies in Germany and the United States and the cooperation that is going to lead to new voices for those who are underprivileged and are not achieving in America. And I mentioned specifically, I know President Obama has been interested in the community college business. Now, this is a bit more elevated than the elementary level, but I went with him to Indianapolis to a community college affair there. There were people from all ages, 13 to 50, who are potential job holders but are not prepared really in terms of the basics, I'm afraid, even of getting to the apprenticeship level. So could you comment on how what we've discussed today might be extended to help these people?
Well, I think that, first of all, Senator, thank you so much for all of your good work on this. You know, I was just this week, my team and I were up at Harvard talking about this very issue, and I think there's a significant opportunity in what I would call 9 through 14 education. And I know when I sat on the school board in Chicago, one of the things we did is open five high schools that really went 9 to 14. So they were a total continuum. What's critical is as we do each one of those schools, and the Pathway to Partnership network, which I spoke about earlier, is doing this in 11 different states. What's critical is each of those schools is sponsored by a business and has local business partnerships. The idea being we really need our business leaders to take a leading role in our education system, focusing the education system on making sure that our young people are getting valued skills. More and more young people need to work sooner in life or can't afford to go right to a 4-year college, or they need to stack their credentials over time. And we've got to create more flexible pathways that are practical for what our youth need in order to be able to continually improve or gain more learning, but also recognize the realities of what they need to be able to, help either support their family or support themselves. And so I think that these kinds of more flexible, practical programs deserve more elevation by all of us and deserve to be viewed as with a great deal of esteem and prestige. We've sort of vocational education in our country for some reason went out of favor and out of respect, and I think we need to play a role in reversing that. The same way I think we're working really hard to reverse the image of manufacturing, and why Manufacturing Day this year will be October 2nd. I think we should be doing the same for that kind of training for our kids, and that was one of my major takeaways from my own learnings this week. I just want to say thank you very much to the German Marshall Fund for hosting us, and really thank you very much to the German government for being such great entrepreneurial partners with the United States, not only in this effort on working on our skilled workforce, but in so many other areas. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your questions, and thank you, Madam Secretary. At this point, we'd like to begin the signing ceremony. Please join me in welcoming to the front the U.S. signatories for today's joint declaration. Assistant Secretary of Education, Training Administration at the Department of Labor, Portia Wu. and Acting Assistant Secretary for Career, Technical, and Adult Education at the Department of Education, Johan Uven, and the U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Economic Development, Jay Williams. They're joined by State Secretary Rachel, who will be serving as the German signatory. Two of his colleagues from the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy and the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs have already signed the agreement back in Germany. Finally, let me welcome up to the front the Honorable Peter Wittig, a very good friend of the German Marshall Fund, German Ambassador to the United States, and Deputy Secretary Liu, to join Secretary Pritzker as witnesses to the signing. Okay, everybody get their pictures? Everything signed? Great. I'm sorry. Oh, we're going to take a quick formal photo here.
Folks, just look to the front. Great. Stand up straight.
Okay, great. To everyone in the room and those watching online, thank you for joining us this morning. For those present in the room, please join us for lunch in the forum. Thank you for coming.